Hello, and welcome to RCOP's March meeting. Really excited on our topic today. We're going to learn more about ChatGPT and how it can help us with our CMMC compliance. And so as a couple of intro slides prior, then I'll give the whole floor to Derek and we'll get to learn a whole lot more and some great tools. So since we did do a decent amount of marketing, I just wanted to make sure everyone had heard who is RCOP. And RCOP, we're Regulated Research Community of Practice, and we are groups of research institutions that support research subject to compliance regulations. And we're working together to increase that knowledge pool and increase in efficiency. So everyone is welcome. There's no secret handshake. It's we hang out on the website with this. We do workshops as well as webinars, and we also have a pretty active Slack group. It's also an NSF funded award for the next about year and a half. We also cover a whole wide range of domains and roles. And I just wanted to show this, meaning the people who are coming to these meetings might have significantly different jobs than you, but on the other hand, their significantly different job is going to all be part of the giant workflow that we are supporting within the regulated research space. We do have some cool things coming up. Next week, Eric has a slot speaking at the High Performance Computing Security Workshop. And we've somewhat promoted that a little bit with that the NIST talk that we gave a little bit ago on the differences with HPC. But that's coming up, and so pretty exciting there. Then next month, this RCOP meeting, we're looking at doing a panel for GRC compliance tools. And it sounds like we're able to collect some really good experience there. We have some best of breeds, we have some newcomers, and we're even looking at maybe some homegrown ones. So we'll get a whole lot of question and answer in that one. The big one that's getting planned behind the scenes right now is we have a full day workshop at EDUCA's Cybersecurity Privacy Professionals Conference. Does not roll off my tongue. It's still EDUCA's Security Professionals meeting to me, but we're doing a full day workshop. It's going to be an advanced cybersecurity or advanced SSP workshop. And the outcome of this is going to be something that I really don't think exists in that current setting. So we're going to talk through some of our harder controls with other experts around the country. And it will be you, but times a bunch of people, and everyone who's struggling with the same things you are, they're going to be in that room. So I still have alternate slots available for scholarships, and I highly encourage, I should be giving notice in the next few days on people who aren't using their scholarship. And so I'd like to support as many people as I can getting into that room. And then finally, in May, we're going to do a SSP debrief of that workshop. So you'll get to hear what's going on in that space. Finally, what we've got going on today. And I just wanted to put this kind of as the why we selected this talk. And I feel like giving us as many tools and opportunities to try something new is really valuable, especially as it comes to higher ed. And we're typically a little slower to the uptick on, well, maybe getting our hands on, this is a great new item that could possibly save you some time. So I see in the chat, you're asking about the check-in. We're not doing the sign-in this month, but if you are interested in joining the mailing list, there's a join link on the website. I've also promoted it in the Google Doc that did just appear. Thank you. And with that, I'll hand the floor over to Derek.
All right. Thank you, Carolyn. And I hope everyone is excited as I am to learn about ChatGPT. It's definitely trending, and it has a no shortage of excitement, but also controversy behind it as well, and critics, just like any revolutionary technology. So let me share my screen. One moment. All right.
Yep, we see it.
Can y'all see my slides?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, great. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on the slides. I'm going to definitely spend ample time on actually demonstrating ChatGPT, what I would like to call the magic of it. I can certainly show you better than I can tell you, but I do need to do some level setting and give you some context. And I think the best place to start is really how I got started using ChatGPT. And I want to emphasize that ChatGPT doesn't pay me to endorse them, or I'm not on a payroll or anything like that. I have no financial incentive. But at heart, I'm an educator, and I view ChatGPT as a great resource, a tool. It's not a magic bullet. It's not autopilot, but it is a great resource. And that's what I want to show you today. Now, it was early December, I was watching a YouTube video, and the person being interviewed, they mentioned how they use ChatGPT to write an essay on a really complex topic. And the way they described it and how they said once the output from ChatGPT was really mind-blowing. They were so impressed by it. And that was the first time that I had an interest in actually really playing with artificial intelligence. I was familiar with the basics of it, but I'm sure like many of you, I felt like I needed to be a data scientist to really leverage the power of artificial intelligence. So I never pursued learning much about it. But after listening to that interview, I said, that sounds pretty simple, write an essay. Let's try it out. So I went to OpenAI's website, which that's the company that has launched ChatGPT. And within a couple minutes, I signed up and I had access to ChatGPT. Now, as a cybersecurity professional, the first thing I wanted to see, like, okay, can it write a security policy? Because as a consultant, that's one of our most requested services from our clients, to write policies and procedures. So I typed in, write a cybersecurity policy that is compliant with CMMC 2.0. Hit enter, and within seconds, it had the framework of a high quality policy. And I was really impressed, like mind blown. And it was at that point I determined, like, wow, this is a game changer for not just cybersecurity, but all industries. And I guess it was kind of like the same reaction if you think about other revolutionary technology like the iPhone or cloud services, things like that, where you just know that this is going to be different. This is a different approach to the way we've been doing things, as Carolyn mentioned. So I'm just going to give you an overview. We're going to do a live chat demo and then question and answer. Like I want you to leave ample time for question and answers. And then also, if you have questions coming in as I'm presenting, feel free to provide those questions. So just a little bit about myself. I started my cybersecurity career over 20 years ago in the Army. And I worked after getting out of the Army, my last year, I was deployed to Iraq. And it was in that role where I started working with defense contractors. So 6 months after getting out of the Army, returned back to Iraq, working for a large defense contractor. And I worked for ITT Systems. I've also worked for Lockheed Martin. So I've seen multiple sides. And most recently, prior to starting my company, Aspire Cyber, I worked for Bank of America as a third-party risk assessor. And it was my responsibility to assess Bank of America's supply chain. So there's a lot of overlap between CMMC and my experiences of doing risk assessments for Bank of America. And in my career, I've completed hundreds of risk assessments and written and reviewed thousands of policies and just cybersecurity related evidence, compliance evidence. So when we think about ChatGPT and its capabilities, it has a lot of capabilities. And this slide just kind of highlights its capabilities related to cybersecurity compliance and CMMC. So it can help with training, education, writing policies and procedures, system hardening, remediation, doing assessments. There's a long list. So if you can imagine something that you need done from a text-based approach or compliance-based approach, likely ChatGPT can assist. And we're going to demonstrate that today. These are some examples of how ChatGPT, just this month, ChatGPT released its API. So it's for basically how companies can use it and integrate it into their software and really do full automation. So these are just some examples of some use cases for the API for ChatGPT. Do compliance monitoring, definitely security operations centers are leveraging artificial intelligence, threat detection. The list goes on and on. Now, in terms of the API use cases, that's going to be outside the scope of this presentation. We're going to keep it basic, but just wanted to let you know that those do exist. And for that application programming interface, it does require some coding. So again, that's why that's outside of the scope of this presentation, but just know, I read an article recently where they were talking about that now that ChatGPT has released this API, there essentially is a gold rush where companies are trying to see, okay, how can we integrate ChatGPT into our existing application, software, work processes, because people see just how powerful it is. Now, with those capabilities, definitely comes limitations. And I'm sure if you all have been following the news, you've seen not only the good things that people are pointing out about ChatGPT, but also some of the limitations and some of maybe the cons. And think about it again as a transformative technology. It's still relatively new in terms of how ChatGPT pretty much has just kind of widespread access for where people are being able to interface with artificial intelligence. So of course there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be no shortage of critics, but these are just some of the limitations. So it doesn't have access to real-time data. But basically what ChatGPT is, it's a machine, well, it's an artificial intelligence language model. And ChatGPT basically just gives you that interface where you can interact with that language model in basically a chat format and text format, and it gives you human-like responses. That's what's so really just captivating about ChatGPT. And it was trained on, I think, over 45 terabytes of data. So basically crawling the internet, looking at websites, books, the website articles, basically all that information it compiles into its language model. And that's what it references as we're putting in prompts, interfacing with it. That's how it's using artificial intelligence. That's the pool of knowledge it has. Now with that, the current version, ChatGPT 3, the current version was trained up to 2021. So that means it doesn't have access to something that happened yesterday or after 2021, doesn't have access to that knowledge. However, that doesn't prevent you from providing it that context, providing it those prompts and pretty much feeding it and teaching it, helping it learn. And occasionally there's definitely been examples where it produced harmful content or just inaccurate information. And we're going to talk more about that. Can have some biases, lack of flexibility, et cetera. But for all of its limitations, if you think about the internet or Google or anything like that, have similar limitations. It's definitely, it's nothing that's foreign to any other groundbreaking technology. And I went back last night, I was looking at some responses of people some critics of when the iPhone was launched in 2007. And just one of the most popular, I guess, critiques was, oh, it's not going to be successful because it doesn't have a keyboard. So now in hindsight, we're looking back like they were wrong. So I think with ChatGPT, it definitely is going to be critics, but certainly I think it's here to stay, and it's going to continue to evolve and get better. And what I really want to highlight is when I use the word automation, automate your CMMC efforts, I don't use that word lightly. And I want to emphasize that I don't mean autopilot. I don't mean that you can just type in ChatGPT, hey, make me compliant with CMMC, and then hit enter and go back to doing what you're doing and you're set. No, it doesn't work that way. It's not that's simple yet. However, it basically is a good starting point for you. Instead of, for example, trying to create your cybersecurity policy or a system security plan, starting looking at a blank page, starting with ChatGPT, you can give it prompts and give it context, and it can definitely give you some good verbiage to put into your policy and SSP, for example. And then from there, you'll continue to customize it to your organization. And if you're doing a CMMC level 2 assessment, I certainly would recommend consulting with a CMMC expert to make sure that have them review any work that you've done, but it's a good starting point, and it can reduce your cost that you're spending on a consultant. But at the end of the day, I would highly recommend that you have an expert check your work. And also keep in mind with CMMC, it's an open book test. And the answer key is that CMMC assessment guide, or NIST SP 800-171 Alpha, which is the assessment guide. That contains all of the answers. That lets you know exactly, once those assessors show up on site to assess your practices for NIST 800-171, it's telling you exactly what they're going to be looking for, what evidence they're looking for, how they're going to examine, test. It gives you all of those answers. So as you're using ChatGPT, you're also going to be referencing the 800-171 Alpha, the assessment guide, to ensure that ChatGPT is giving you accurate information and it's aligned. Now, also with ChatGPT, there certainly are some privacy concerns. Right now, with the free version of ChatGPT, is still in kind of basically a training learning model, and right now it's free, but you want to be cautious about any prompts that you put in terms of sensitive information, especially CUI or anything really specific or sensitive to your organization. You don't want to put into ChatGPT, because the company OpenAI, they do have access to those conversations, and there's definitely been some concerns about their privacy policy and just what they're doing with that information. So you do want to be conscious of that. The same as if you're putting information into Google or any other public platform. However, with the release of the ChatGPT API, they did do some updates to their privacy policy, where I know with the API for those customers, they decided that they will be deleting any of that data within 30 days. And there's some other parameters, but there certainly are. Just keep privacy top of mind anytime you're interfacing with ChatGPT, or again, any public source like that. And my position is, I definitely think there should be governance around artificial intelligence, and it's only a matter of time before that happens. If you think about other industries, I recently learned that like the airline industry and the car industry, initially they didn't have government regulation. So it was a matter of time before the government had to step in and apply regulation to the industry. And I'm sure artificial intelligence will be no different. So that's enough for the slides. I'm about to get ready to jump into the demonstration. Before I jump into that demonstration, do we have any pressing questions?
We do. Eric, do you want to lead the questions? Because you're on mute.
All right,
So
can you all see my?
There is a particular question. How secure is ChatGPT? Has it been approved for CUI or CDI or FERPA or HIPAA?
So my answer to that would be no, it hasn't been approved. And again, I want to emphasize, you should not put sensitive information into ChatGPT, especially not CUI or any regulated data. No. And as I'm going to demonstrate, you don't need to put that information in there. Essentially, the output that ChatGPT is going to provide you is going to be raw output. And from there, you're going to take it and tailor it to your organization. But again, it's a starting point for you. It's a tool, it's a resource, just like any other free resource that you're going to use. But in my 20 years of experience, I've seen a lot of tools advertise, okay, they can do automation, for example, cybersecurity compliance, but ChatGPT is the closest I've seen to actually doing automation, and you're going to see that in the demonstration. But again, yeah,
there are a couple of other questions, but I think you will address them when you show how you're actually using it. I think people right now are naively still thinking that they ask some magic word and everything comes out, and you will show them that it doesn't work that way. So I think we should let you start with your demo instead of having more questions.
Yes, absolutely. And also, and make sure y'all can see my ChatGPT screen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So this is what you see once you get access to ChatGPT. Again, right now it's free. So you just go to OpenAI, sign up, and this is what you'll see. So basically everything, this is a conversation, and down here's the prompt, just like if you're typing in Google. This is the prompt. This is how you provide ChatGPT the context, and you ask questions to get output. Just like you're talking to a person or your genius friend that knows a lot of stuff about. But you'll see right here, I have ChatGPT Plus, which that is the paid version that they released last month. I paid $20 a month for it. And the reason I do that is everything I demonstrate today, you can do using the free version. But with ChatGPT Plus, it basically ensures that even during peak times, because ChatGPT is so popular, with the free version, I was running in cases where I was trying to use it and it was just basically overloaded. It was saying that these are peak hours, try again later. But since I purchased the Plus version, I haven't had that issue. So that's one of the reasons I decided to purchase it. But keep in mind, yeah, everything I demonstrate today, you can do with the free version. Also, Bing has a limited release so far where they've built their Bing search engine, Microsoft Bing search engine on ChatGPT. And they basically started giving people access to that. So that's another version of the ChatGPT software where you can that version has access to real-time information on the internet. But again, that's outside of the scope of this presentation. So once you go to ChatGPT, you go down here to the prompt. And one thing to keep in mind, all information that you enter into ChatGPT, it'll remember it in that conversation. So it'll remember all that context until you delete it. Now, for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to kind of focus on information that we can use to put into the system security plan. And so currently the CS2 conference is going on right now, and it was brought to my attention that Nick De La Rosa, he basically did a presentation yesterday, and Nick, he's the supervisor for the DIPCAC, the Defense Industrial Base Cybersecurity Assessment Center. Yeah, that's a tongue twister, but they're the ones who actually, the DoD assessors who do the NIST 800-171 medium and high assessments. But he did a presentation yesterday at the CS2 conference where he highlighted that, where he put in a prompt into ChatGPT to give him a SSP entry for CM Change Management 3.4.5. And essentially ChatGPT, based on that prompt that he provided, ChatGPT provided inaccurate information, provided output that was not related to the actual NIST practice. So that is a valid example of where ChatGPT can be accurate. But what I'm going to show you is ways you can use best practices to, even if you initially get inaccurate information, you can get ChatGPT back on the right track. You can provide it enough context where it can give you accurate information. And at the end of the day, you're always going to go back to the assessment guide to make sure that it is accurate. So we're going to kind of walk through that case study. I'm show you how we can use that good quality prompts to get accurate information. So my position with ChatGPT over the last 3 months that I've been playing with it, quality in, quality out. It all starts with your prompts. So in this example, I'm just going to tell ChatGPT that I'm a researcher at a public university, and just give it kind of some context and say, hey, we receive and create CUI in the performance of our DoD contract. So I just kind of want to start off by giving ChatGPT some context. And as you see, ChatGPT is okay. It's letting me know, okay, based on the prompt that I provided, it's letting me know some considerations I should keep in mind in terms of compliance with securing CUI. So that's the first prompt. And that's really just to get started, to give it some context. So think about, you're having a conversation with ChatGPT. That's your goal. You want to keep it conversational. So the next prompt I'm going to give it is, you can have ChatGPT assume a role, essentially like what role you want ChatGPT to provide your information in, like basically assume whatever you want it to be. So in this prompt, I'm telling you, I want it to act as a senior CMMC consultant that has extensive experience helping research universities satisfy NIST 800-171. And you see, I emphasize I wanted to also include the 320 assessment objectives, because remember, that's your answer key for the CMMC assessment. And you see here, it says, sure, yeah, I can act as a senior CMMC consultant. It's giving me things I need to consider in terms of becoming compliant with CMMC. So the SSP, conduct a gap assessment, implement security controls, train personnel. So I just want to pause for a minute, just kind of give you an idea of just how concisely and quickly it gives you information and can put you on the right track versus me typing that into Google and I have to sort through all of the sponsored ads and try to figure out which article is going to give me accurate information. ChatGPT can really consolidate it for you and make it really concise. So that's one thing I really love about it. And then also you can tell ChatGPT, you can put in some text from, let's say, the assessment guide and say, explain this to me as if I'm a third grader. And it's really going to break it down for you to make it more simplified, easy to understand, and pretty much simplify the tech jargon. So, okay, so now ChatGPT has an idea of, okay, what organization I work for. I work for a research university. We create CUI. We need to be compliant with NIST 800-171. So it has that context and it knows what role it needs to assume as a CMMC expert. So, okay, next we're about to get into the meat of it. So the next prompt I have, and again, I'm just for make it quick, I'm just pasting it in, but typically you can just type in the prompts. So next I'm going to ask ChatGPT, okay, give me step-by-step guidance and recommend solutions on how my research department can fully satisfy 800-171. And then I mentioned the Pacific practice. So I'll point out one thing that I noticed on Nick's prompt, Nick De La Rosa prompt that he gave during this, or he showed during this presentation, is pretty much, he didn't provide all of this context to ChatGPT. He pretty much just kind of assumed that ChatGPT already knew this. So from my approach, I don't assume. I provide ChatGPT details on exactly what I want. So pretty much on Nick's prompt, he stopped at where it says, just provide me a SSP entry for 3.4.5. I added in, okay, I added in what the Pacific practice is for 3.4.5. So that's giving ChatGPT more context. And again, I'm emphasizing quality prompts will give you quality output. So, okay, now ChatGPT say, okay, certainly. First, okay, you want to identify system owners, telling you how to do that. Next, you want to define your physical access restrictions. Okay, you want to define your logical restrictions. And also every prompt that you receive or every output that you receive from ChatGPT, you always can follow up with another question and get more and more information, have ChatGPT elaborate or explain it in a different way, give examples. There's no limitations on the prompts that you can continue to feed it to make sure that you're getting more information. So I watched an example yesterday where someone was using ChatGPT to write code. And essentially the first couple prompts of code that ChatGPT provided the person, it was wrong. It didn't work. But that person didn't stop there and say, okay, yeah, ChatGPT sucks. It just doesn't work. That person said, okay, it continued to prompt ChatGPT for more help. It gave ChatGPT the errors that it was receiving. And then by the end of that conversation with ChatGPT, the code was working. So that's really the approach you want to take with ChatGPT when you're working through your CMMC compliance activities. Is again, you're always going back to that guide is going to be, the assessment guide is going to be your authoritative source. And then you're just going to use ChatGPT to just aid you along to achieve what you're looking for. So, all right, so those are the steps that ChatGPT gives me. Then it also gives me recommended solutions on actual technical solutions that I should use to satisfy this practice. So tell me, okay, Active Directory, LDAP, multi-factor authentication, RBAC. So think about it as far as the old way, like Carolyn mentioned, where you're trying to figure this out by just using Google. You may have to read 20 articles to try to just get this amount of information. So it gives you an idea of how powerful this ChatGPT tool is and how it allows you to interface with artificial intelligence and just really explore it to the fullest. So we're not done. So again, all this is really building up the context for ChatGPT. So one thing that when I'm putting out, so I post like blog articles and videos on how to use ChatGPT for CMMC. And certainly I've gotten some pushback from CMMC assessors or just the ecosystem. We're saying, okay, one example is they were saying that ChatGPT doesn't have knowledge of the 800-171 assessment guide. And that may or may not be true. But as I pointed out earlier, I don't assume that it does have that knowledge. But what I'm going to do is feed it that knowledge and then allow it to apply its intelligence to give me valuable output that I can use. So in this example, I'm going to add the assessment objectives for this practice. So these are all the assessment objectives that are outlined in NIST 800-171 for 3.4.5. And it's okay. So I tell ChatGPT, okay, outline specific examples how I can satisfy the following assessments objectives. And sure, not a problem. And now it tells me, okay, it's breaking down each assessment objective and telling me how I can satisfy it. Again, ChatGPT can't do the work for you, like actually the physical work, but it's giving you guidance. It's essentially, I like to call this, it's a CMMC consultant for you in a sense, where it's giving you guidance. But again, I'll reiterate again, before you actually proceed with your CMMC level 2 a formal assessment, whenever CMMC becomes final, you do want to have a second set of eyes, that expert to review all of this work, but you're not starting from scratch. And that's going to save you a lot of hours as far as consulting hours from my standpoint. So as you see, it's giving you examples. And for each of these examples, I can continue to prompt ChatGPT for more information, more guidance, more examples. It's just, you're not limited. All right, next, what I think is really cool, this is something I recently discovered, is how ChatGPT, let's see, oops, sorry. 1 moment, get the right prompt. All right, so now I'm going to say, okay, ChatGPT has provided me a lot of information. Okay, but now I want it to put it in a chart format to pretty much kind of summarize it for me so it's easier for me to consume. So in chart format, list the suggested guidance and recommendations. Again, keep in mind, all of the information is provided me in this conversation, ChatGPT remembers, so I don't have to restate that. Okay, sure. Now this is magical to me. Like now it's just from that prompt, it's creating a chart that's summarizing all the information that's provided me. And this is something you as an organization, you can work with. This can be a good starting point for you to say, okay, when you're doing your gap assessment and seeing if you're ready for CMMC, if you're compliant, you can just start working through these. And these are just examples and guidance. And again, you can continue to probe ChatGPT for more information, for more guidance. All right, so now that it's providing me that guidance, I want to go even further. I just want to keep asking for more and more and more. Let's push his limits. Okay, now ChatGPT provide me step-by-step guidance on how to implement the recommended solutions. Certainly, so ChatGPT is so friendly. All right, so we want to define the physical and logical access restrictions. Again, we are focused on just the 3.4.5 practice, but yeah, you would follow these same best practices for each of the 110 practices and 320 assessment objectives. So it's giving me step-by-step guidance. These are actionable activities that I can start working on today as a defense contractor versus someone telling me, hey, just go read the regulation, go read the special publication and figure it out, or hire me as a consultant and I'll handle it for you. So this is a way, really my drive or my incentive for teaching people how to leverage ChatGPT is really to empower you, where you don't need a consultant to do every activity for you. Some of these activities are not technical. A lot of it deals with documentation. So absolutely, ChatGPT can help you with that documentation and potentially save you a lot of time and money. So just giving you.
So there is a question where people are asking, when does ChatGPT start retaining the information that you type into it and learning from it for future sessions?
So so whatever you type in, yeah, it's retaining that information and it's learning from it. So for example, let's see, let's go back. So here's an example how it learns from the information you give it. So say, for example, if I read this step-by-step guidance and I decide like, no, that's not accurate. I looked at the assessment guide, that's not accurate. Then I can put a thumbs down And then I can provide ChatGPT additional feedback on, hey, why this was not accurate, or why it was harmful, unsafe, or inaccurate. And ChatGPT learns from that. And that's how it continuously improves. So even though this version was trained up to 2021, information that I'm providing it right now is learning from it. So it's continuing to improve. Hopefully that answers the question. But again, with the sensitivity and privacy concerns, that you're not putting in specific information about your organization that's sensitive in nature. I initially started off providing the context, just kind of general contextual information, like, hey, I work for a research university. We do have a DoD contract. We produce and create CUI. That's about to the extent of data that I would feed it from a sensitive nature. But you see, it's providing me all this output without needing to put specific information like anything that would be considered CUI. There's nothing I put in here that's considered CUI.
I will jump into with another popular question. People are curious how to find out where it learned its information, cite its sources, all of that. Can you ask that or get that type of information?
Oh yeah, that's great. Good question. So let's just use, how was trained? So it was trained on a large data set. Okay, let's see. Examples of sources. So we got books, websites, academic papers. But so again, this is just some examples of how it can tell you what it was trained on. But keep in mind the context of this example, you're using ChatGPT not to write a research paper, or you're using it for guidance. So instead of me telling you go read 800-171, which I'm saying you should reference it, but use ChatGPT along with 800-171 to get an understanding of it and to help give you guidance. Because as many of you know, just those publications, there's so much technical jargon where it's confusing, where you seem like you do need to hire a consultant to help you navigate just all of the jargon. ChatGPT can help give you guidance, provide you context, and provide you steps and solutions. It's a starting point for you. So let's see. So another example is, so we are on the configuration management practice. So let's see. So now that I've provided ChatGPT all of that context and information and solutions it's provided me, I want to see if it can write a configuration management policy for me. And that's what we're going to need for this practice. And for a level 2 assessment, you're going to need to have documentation. So documented policies and procedures. So first I'm going to start off by asking ChatGPT, okay, what sections should be included in the configuration management policy? And voila, within seconds, it's telling me, okay, and you need a purpose and scope, you need definitions, role, responsibilities. It's breaking that down for me. So for any of you who ever had to write policies, you know it can be a really cumbersome process and trying to figure out, okay, what should be included. And just imagine having to start with a blank page versus using ChatGPT to point you in the right direction to give you some guidance. So it's told me, okay, what should be included. Now I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write me a sample policy for that specific 3.4.5 practice. And I'm asking it to include the assessment objectives. Now, keep in mind, it's going to be the raw output, but you would take this raw output, put it into your policy template, and then you would customize it from there to your specific organization, your policy, your processes, or specific policies, but you're not starting from scratch. So it's breaking down all those sections, and it's covering the assessment objectives. And again, before you actually sign up for your CMMC assessment level 2, you would have your CMMC consultant or cybersecurity consultant, whoever you're using for consulting, to review this. And if they do identify any gaps, they can fill those gaps. But again, you're not paying them to create it from scratch. They have a starting point. So if me as a consultant, someone gives me this in a policy template, yeah, that's going to save them hours on consulting time because I'm not creating it from scratch. Typically, if I'm creating this from scratch, it's going to at least be 6 hours of billable hours of me consulting and giving them this basics. So ChatGPT can save you real time and money. Okay, so before I open up to the question, I want to jump real quick into the SSP. So to give you an example of how you would leverage all of this information that ChatGPT just provided for your system security plan. And keep in mind that system security plan is that's what pretty much is going to include all of the information about the controls you have for all 110 practices and 320 assessment objectives. So, okay, I'm telling ChatGPT, I've implemented all of the requirements and solutions that you suggested. So just to give them that context, now my follow-up prompt. So it's saying, okay, that's great to hear. My follow-up prompt, write a system security plan entry that describes how my research university fully satisfies 3.4.5. And then also include the assessment objectives, incorporate bullets, reference the configuration management policy. So this is, now I'm getting into having it write the actual system security plan entry. And if you remember when we first started this presentation, when I referenced Nick Del Rosa example during his presentation, pretty much he started the conversation off with, hey, write this entry for my system security plan, and then provide any of that context. So it just gives you examples as far as how using the best practices, you can get a better output, more quality output that should be more accurate. All right, so it's telling me, all right, so this is actual verbiage that I can put into my system security plan and saying, okay, this is how my research department is satisfying this requirement. And again, this will be your drafts system security plan. You're going to have whoever your expert or consultant you're working with, they're going to review it before you finalize it, but you're not starting from scratch. And then also a key thing to keep in mind, if you're using cloud services, if you're storing your CUI in, let's say, AWS Gov Cloud, for example, in your system security plan, you should also outline the shared controls, the controls you're inheriting from your cloud service provider. So in this example, I'm going to ask ChatGPT, okay, describe how AWS Gov Cloud satisfies 3.4.5 and the assessment objectives, because that should be included in your security plan. And the best source to get that information is going to be your cloud service provider SOC 2 type 2 document report. But this is ChatGPT can give you a starting point, and you can just validate the information by looking at the SOC 2 type 2 report. So it's saying, hey, physical access to AWS Gov Cloud data centers restricted to authorized personnel. You have change management controls in place. Gives me references. That's pretty cool. So this way you can go back and validate the information that you're receiving. So you're going to trust. I wouldn't say you're going to trust. You're going to verify this information, but again, it's a starting point. And a couple bonus ones to close out. Let's see. So some other documentation that ChatGPT can assist you with is, let's see, you're going to need to show that you have like a configuration management plan. So let's see if ChatGPT can help us create a configuration management plan. So it's giving me scope, it's planning, I'm defining, telling me how the controls I need to have in place. I need to have verification and audit roles and responsibilities. So this is just ways to help you implement these controls. And then the last piece of evidence I'll demonstrate is a change control ticket. All right, what should be included in the change control ticket? ChatGPT is going to tell me, okay, the date of the request, the person making the request change, the priority level, the expected completion date. So if your organization is maybe using a change request ticket or system, something like that, and you don't have this information, hey, this helps you, let you know, okay, I need to include this information. Or again, it's a good starting point, a good tool. So I'll end there, and yeah, let's see if we got some questions.
Right, let's see. Would you know what OpenAI is doing to try and avoid misinformation?
No, like again, I don't work for OpenAI or have
No,
any.
I know that, but I was
Yeah,
sort of hoping
yeah,
that maybe
yeah,
you read it somewhere.
yeah. So they definitely have a privacy policy that you can view on their website, and I don't know if they talk as much about misinformation, but I have watched several interviews from his founder and other people that's been involved in OpenAI and Microsoft. And yeah, they're doing the same things that Google's doing or any other platform or social media. They're trying to combat it, but it's something that can't be completely alleviated, but they definitely have controls in place, and it's something that they're trying to manage. But I can't speak to the specifics of what they're doing.
One question somebody asked, could ChatGPT digest an existing SSP that has non-compliant solutions in it and then create a gap assessment document?
Hey, I'm sure it can, and that may tie more into the API. But an example, you can feed ChatGPT, let's say passages from the known compliant SSP, and just give it context and say, okay, provide responses that align with basically the information I've already provided you. So I think there definitely is a manual way, like I was just showing. You would just be able to feed ChatGPT that known, let's say, good information or compliant information, and just basically have it provide you output along those same lines.
Right.
Here's one. How does ChatGPT give different advice if you were told that you were a DoD employed researcher versus a university researcher?
So I would say, yeah, I think it just applying this intelligence where it's going to kind of maybe factor in, okay, universities may have certain different requirements than DoD, or use different technology, or just a different environment. I think it does have that intelligence to basically provide you tailored information. The more context you provide it.
Do we have time to demonstrate that difference?
So, yeah, let's see. So let's do that. 1 second. And while I'm pulling that up, so can you provide me a little more context as far as or if you have an example of maybe an example prompt you want me to do, or?
You told it you were a university researcher, and to give it some context, and then you asked other questions that we assume are in the context of the university researcher. If you told it instead you were federally employed by pick your branch of the DoD, how would that change the answers it gives you, if at all?
Yeah, really good question. Let's see. All right, so let's go all the way back up to the top, and I'll just adjust its initial prompt. So I am it may be easy to start from scratch.
Maybe you work at DARPA.
See, I work at DARPA.
Sure.
Let's see, I'll say I'm a DoD defense employee. And all right, and I'm asking it for guidance on how to satisfy that same practice.
Sure.
Is that right?
Yes, I'm looking for how much context is it actually applying out of your claimed university,
Right,
versus a purely federal role.
Right. So the reason I'm kind of struggling with this, because with 3.4.5, NIST 800-171, this is going to be for non-federal systems, so it really wouldn't apply to a DoD employee. But we can just give it a shot. Provide me. Three dot 4.5.
Can you ask it if its answer would change if you were
Okay.
an industry researcher as opposed to a university researcher.
Okay.
It has a spelling change.
Change. And that's a good thing too about ChatGPT. You can misspell and usually it doesn't matter. It's smart enough. So if I was a industry researcher versus a what?
Or
University.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think the same. Yes. Say the basics is going to be the same regardless of your industry as far as the guidance. And that's the thing with NIST 801, it's not that prescriptive where it's saying, okay, these controls are just for industry researchers or universities or it's not that level of prescriptive. It's just it gives you the guidelines of the requirements and you determine how you're going to satisfy those requirements. So I think this is really a good example of in this context, really the guidance is going to be the same, where I think it may differ a little bit if I would have said when I'm asking for solutions. If I say I'm a one-person startup versus a university, I think it will apply some intelligence to the solutions that will recommend for a one-person startup versus a large enterprise or university.
But in that one, universities are subject to ITAR if they're doing ITAR research, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct.
So do you
Again,
recommend stacking and saving your questions in a different format so that you could come back and get to the same state and carry on with the process?
So I recommend saving your conversations. If it's, again, you're not putting sensitive information in there, but yeah, I would recommend saving your conversation because it will remember everything you've already put and all of the guidance is already giving you and continue to build on that. Yeah. So yeah, you can say that conversation.
but only in the same session, right? If you go to a new session, then the previous thing is gone or not.
If you have to, you have to delete the conversation. And let me demonstrate that real quick. So it's not showing up here, but basically all your conversations will be over here. And then this conversation will be over here. If I want to delete it, I will have to click on it and manually delete it.
Okay.
As long as I don't delete it, it's still there and it'll remember.
Okay. So you don't have to externally make a copy. It actually makes one for you.
Correct. And for this webinar, I'm going to copy the conversation that I demonstrated today, and Carolyn's going to share that on the Google Share for you.
Yes.
You'll have those prompts. What I recommend is start compiling the prompts when you're playing around with ChatGPT. Compile all the prompts you're using and just keep them so you have them and you can continue to get better at it and use more powerful prompts to get better output. So that's what I do. I have a long list of prompts that I've used and I like a lot. And that's what I recommend.
So there's a character limit on each prompt. Is there a limit to the number of prompts per session, or can you go 8 hours or 6 hours or,
So technically there's not. As far as the free version, I have run into situations where it basically ChatGPT told me, all right, you've used it too much today, or you maxed out. But with the paid version, I haven't encountered that. I use it almost every day and I haven't run into any throttling issues.
Thank you.
But any more questions? Yeah, really good questions.
Well, this was very helpful. Thank you, Derek, for presenting this and showing your really nice balanced sort of explanation and guide through how to use ChatGPT in what I would call a reasonable and responsible way rather than just expecting magic, right?
Absolutely. And that's the key takeaway I want you all to have, that it's a resource, it's a tool, and I view it as a starting point versus, I know like you all, a lot of my clients, they struggle through just navigating the CMMC requirements, and ChatGPT can help. It's not the magic bullet. It's not an autopilot, but as you see, it can automate some of your activities. And But
Yeah,
it's-
and it writes very nice sentences and it has very few spelling errors. If you have to type the same text, it takes a lot longer.
yeah, you can see how it can save you a lot of time and potentially consulting hours. But yeah, it's been a pleasure presenting to you all. Thanks for the questions and just your attention today. Hopefully you see the value in ChatGPT and play around with it and find ways where it can enhance your abilities and just make you more productive. I definitely want to give Carolyn a special thanks for inviting me here today and just going above and beyond to share ways that you all can just leverage innovative technology to aid in your CMMC efforts.
I very much appreciate you talking to us too. You are definitely the source of, I should go back and try that. And it's nice learning from you on, okay, here's someone who's actually figured out how to make it work versus the first few hours where you're like, oh, it does cool things. Okay, I'm not sure what to do now. So thank you.